What's up, guys? Welcome to the NBA edition of the Underdog Fantasy Occupy Fantasy Best Ball streams. Your host Chuck and Smitty today. Smitty making his best ball debut this summer. Smitty, how we doing? We ready to draft some NBA?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm excited.
Yeah, Smitty and I have drafted a team or two together. I think we've been in the same room, and so we've been talking about the contest a little bit. Hopefully, we can give you guys a little bit of an edge before all the Twitter touts come out with their information on how to attack this contest. There's just not going to be as much information as there is for NFL, and with NBA, the strategy is so much different than the NFL strategy that there's a few things we really need to discuss. But first, let's just go into the rules of the main contest. It's called the Double Dribble. It's $10 entry, 500K prize pool. They changed the way that the prize pool works this year. This is the main thing. So before, it was just like a traditional playoff best ball tournament where all the prize money is in the playoff weeks in that final round. And so, as you can see, the final round compared to the regular season is pretty small. It's kind of like just a nice bonus at the end of the season. But the regular season prize is what we are shooting for this season. And so, with the contest releasing so early, we're not expecting the NBA schedule until about mid August. And a big thing with the playoff scheduling in NBA is that rather than having a good week 17 matchup like we're shooting for in the NFL, in the NBA, it only matters if the team has 5 or 6 games or 7 or 8 games in the final round. And for me last year, the Cavs, for example, were a team that only had 5 games in the final round, so I pretty much avoided them completely in all my exposures. It just a player only having 5 games is just so different from players having 7 or 8. You're just at such a disadvantage if you're counting on this 5 game guy to produce. And so, Smitty, any initial thoughts when we're just looking at the price pools?
No, I know we were talking about that last night. I was saying how we don't have the schedules, but I mean, I still think it's good to draft now and get those values out of the way, even though you don't know how many games they're going to have.
Yeah, so that's the thing. If the prize pool was still all in the last weeks, then I'm not sure how much getting the ADP value outweighs the possibility of having players on your team that only play 5 or 6 games in the finals. It's such a big difference. And so let's go ahead and look at. Wanted to look at the roster makeup. So this is a big thing. We start 2 guards, 2 wings, 1 bench, and 1 flex. And this is different from the other sites. The other sites have 2 flex, and I think the flexibility on Underdog is so much less. I think it's really important that we want to fill out our starting roster before we start going into our bench spots. So in a typical NFL draft, you've seen us do. I'm typically just pounding receivers, maybe a running back or two in the first 7 rounds, depending on elite QB, whatever. But here, I think it's really important that by round 6, if not round 7, maybe round 7, you have at least 2 guards, 2 wings, and 1 big. The typical drafts that I'm doing recently, I'm ending up with 3 wings before I get my third guard, and that reason you'll see it a little bit better when I show the rankings of the players. But wings are so valuable in this contest that they dry up first. You'll see a huge tier break around pick 60 with the wings, and so it's really important that we have 2 wings that are going to play. And with NFL, so the NBA is different from most other sports where there's no huge scoring events. In the NFL, a quarterback can throw a 90-yard touchdown to his receiver. You're getting all the fantasy points. In baseball, someone hits a grand slam and you have a couple of the guys on base. You're getting all the fantasy points. In UFC, a first round knockout is huge fantasy points. That doesn't really happen in NBA. And so for that reason, our first, I'd say maybe 10 picks, maybe even 9 picks are just so much more important than the end of the roster. The hope that we're trying to do with the end of the roster guys is that maybe end of season a team is tanking and they get 30 minutes a game, something like that, or we just need them to fill in when our main starters are hurt because of the how often sitting happens in the NBA now and injury stuff. And I'll go into this a little bit more, like just real quick, like a player like Kawhi Leonard, who's going to miss probably 1 game a week or 1 game every 2 weeks, in my opinion, he's dead in this tournament. Just because if you're short 1 game a week from your stud player, even if they're averaging 45 fantasy points, like being short that 1 game and being short 45 fantasy points of your potential every scoring period is just so it's just so detrimental to your team. So We'll go into that a little bit more, but the main thing before we start is just draft players who don't sit, who are going to play heavy minutes and have a safe, I guess, safe. They're safe in their rotation. So, Smitty, anything you want to add to all that?
No. Last night, I mean, I drafted Kawhi. I was debating between him and Ingram, and now that I think about it, I should have went with Ingram just because of the point you made. But
Yeah, it's a big deal with players sitting. Like, there's certain players I avoided last year in NBA versus NFL, especially. I imagine most of you guys watching this are familiar with the NFL just draft process, and there's just in NFL you kind of want to get a little bit of most of the players. Maybe you only have a couple hard fades. Where in NBA, I think that you have to have a couple hard fades, and your exposures are probably going to be a little bit more condensed than they are in the NFL. But let's just get into a draft. So if you want to draft with us, I'm going to go ahead and enter the double dribble right now. Let's see. Oh, we got a fresh draft room. So,
I'll join up too.
all right, cool. So Smitty and I were talking about this earlier. Like, I typically do most of my drafts late at night, and these things just do not feel like the NFL does. Like, if I want to do an NFL draft any time of the day, I can hop on whatever site and wait a few minutes, and I'm in a draft. Where in an NBA, I think last night I waited for over 2 hours, and I don't think it got past this point in the lobby. So, 9 more people. If we have 6 viewers, if a couple of you guys want to jump in here, that would be awesome. So, see what I want to go into. Big thing with the advancing, and like I said, I'm focusing on the regular season prize. Once the schedules come out, then maybe I will adjust slightly if certain guys that I like only have 5 games versus the 8 game guys that we're really targeting for the finals round. But the advancement structure is pretty simple. We're in groups of 12 right now. The top 2 will advance to round 2, and then at the end of round 2, it's only the top 1 out of 10, and round 3 1 out of 10. So it's a 94-person final. If you get to the final, you have a pretty decent shot at $10,000. But like I said, I'm shooting for the regular season prize, and so we don't care about the playoff weeks, and the number of games per week isn't going to matter with the regular season prizing. So see if there's anything else we can get into here while we wait. I was kind of worried this would happen, that we'd have to be waiting. But I
Yeah,
figured it's Saturday, middle of the day. People are excited to draft a new format.
it's filling faster than normal, somewhat.
Yeah, we got
I think we got
3 new
4.
people joined in a couple minutes, so it's pretty good. Um, guess we could look at the rankings while we're waiting. So these are the initial rankings. If you happen to be in our Discord, I posted some crazy ADP values as soon as this contest came out, and I think the only player on the list of like maybe 30 guys I posted, Jonas Valanciunas was the only one who fell. Actually, it might have been Jakob Pertl too, but there were some crazy ADP values, and there are still crazy ADP values if you're drafting right now. Let me see if I can pull up a draft board. So this, I believe, this is the draft that Smitty and I did last night, and this one was kind of crazy because I got Ant Edwards at 17, which is absurd. His ADP actually came up this morning when they updated it since yesterday. But we have a 664, and the typical. This is probably a typical roster structure. I think there's a debate on if we want 3 bigs or if we want to add that 4th. The only reason to add a 4th big is if your first 3 big men just get hurt and then you get no points that week. At least we have someone here, and guess I took a shot on Paul Reed. Just if Embiid goes down, he's getting the minutes. Maybe he averages 30 fantasy points, something like that, can contribute to the team. But that's really it. I think that 3 bigs is probably enough because I'm really shooting for elite bigs. You really want an elite big man in this contest, filling up your big man slot. I was trying to think about what positions translate from NFL. Smitty, you mentioned something like that. What do you think?
Yeah, I was kind of thinking receivers is kind of like a wing just because you have your top end guys. After that, you're kind of just taking shots in the dark. But um, running backs, I'm trying to think of who would be a running back.
It's probably like guards in the sense that
Yeah,
there's some really good guards we want at the top, but there's also some guards at the bottom who, if they fill in for a starter, point guards handle the ball. It's easy to think that if they get 30 minutes, they can contribute to your team. Where these
yep.
wings, not so much. Um, so I was talking about that fall off in the wing tiers, and to me, it might be after Franz Wagner. It just there's so few quality wings. I mean, I'm almost always coming out with two wings in the first four rounds, if not two wings in the first three rounds, depending if I get an elite big man or not. Um, just like there are some guys that we can target later, but wings are just I'm emphasizing it because it's just, to me, it's the most important thing. If you miss out, like in NFL, if you don't have a running back through 7 rounds or 8 rounds, you can make that up with volume and just hope that one of those guys ends up getting a bunch of snaps, or like I said, someone can rip off an 80-yard touchdown and they can play one snap and contribute to your team that week. Where in NBA, it just doesn't happen because the scoring weeks. I mean, they're playing multiple games contributing to a certain scoring week. So what I was saying about Kawhi Leonard, um, it just, you don't want to draft guys who are big sit candidates because they're just not going to contribute as many points as the next guy. Still waiting for 8. Um,
What do you so when you get a say you go wing heavy the first 3 rounds and it falls down to you don't get a big in say the first 4 or 5 rounds, would you go for bigs almost like a zero RB build, or do you think you still want to cap that at 3?
It's tough. I don't know. I don't know, because at first, before I started drafting, I was thinking that if I have an elite big and then another decent big like Rudy Gobert, Walker Kessler, I would just stop at 2. But then I remember that I had one team in the finals last year for NBA best ball, and my bigs were, if I remember correctly, Alperen Sengun, Al Horford, and then someone who didn't even play, like Nikola Jovic or something. And I just was drawing dead going into the finals because Sengun missed a game or two. Al Horford doesn't average enough points to compete with the Jokic's and what Embiid and Sabonis were doing in the last couple weeks. And so that's why I say having an elite big is just really powerful,
Yeah.
especially for the playoff week. Just almost guaranteed 45 plus fantasy points from the position.
Sabonis, he was rock solid last year.
Yeah, Sabonis was actually probably my biggest target in the first 2 rounds last year, just because Sacramento had 8 games in the finals, and I thought he was the best option. I was on Fox too, but not quite as much as Sabonis. Just the guards are abundant. There's, like I said in something like this in the Discord, there's always going to be another guard. There's not always going to be another wing. Even looking down here at the guards past round 8, like Spencer Dinwiddie, Terry Rozier, Kevin Porter Jr., even Marcus Smart, uh, D'Angelo Russell could end up playing 30 minutes. We don't know. Like, there are guards who can produce, where the wings, it's just, Cam Johnson might be the last good wing. I still think he's a value. This guy started at ADP 140, and I've never seen him go past his ADP. He always goes 10 picks ahead. Like PJ Washington, he's not listed with the team right now. I don't remember exactly if he's a free agent or not, but he could end up being a pretty good wing value too. Like John Collins is in a new situation. So in the NFL streams, if you've been watching, I talked a lot in the previous one about leaning into uncertainty. And with NBA, the most important thing is minutes. Who's just going to be on the court for most games? And in situations like John Collins, he just got traded to Utah. They already have Lauri Markkanen and Walker Kessler. And so it's tough to think if John Collins is going to start unless they move Lauri Markkanen into the 3. So considering things like that, John Collins could end up being a value. I drafted him in this draft. I've been drafting him a bit. Um, I mean, just the other guys down here, you can see this is kind of, you really want 3 or 4 good wings before pick 100, or you're just going to be screwed at wings. So, see, this is, well, this is not going as well as I'd hoped. Only 4 people are in the draft room. Hopefully we can get a few more in the next 10 minutes, or we might have
I
to
guess
call it. Oh,
we should have started about an hour ago.
Right. I thought about entering it right away. I was like, no, it's Saturday. Like, enough people are playing this contest. I mean, it's 5% full. There's been 3,000 entries so far. 56,000 is the cap. Um, the scoring system, if you played on FanDuel, the scoring system's the same as FanDuel. Points or I should say, blocks and steals are worth 3 and turnovers -1. That is the main thing on the scoring format. And with blocks and steals each being worth 3, those are the most random stats in basketball. And so there's certain guys that we expect to get a bunch of blocks and steals, but it's mostly random. But the guys who tend to get more blocks and steals, big men, good defensive wings, we probably want to target those guys a little bit. And I'm sure the market will adjust once more drafts have been completed. And you can see I was drafted here in the 8 hole. Smitty was over here in the 10. Grabbed Tyrese Halliburton, one of my favorite, uh, probably one of my favorite first round picks towards the end of the first round. I like him over these guys. And Anthony Davis, it's tough because Anthony Davis is one of those players like we're talking about with Kawhi. He's a candidate to sit games, but he talks about he wants to play. Compared to the other options here, AD is just like the bigs after AD just fall off so hard. Like even Jaren Jackson going 13 here, that's kind of surprising. He usually goes over here, but I mean, it just
Yeah, I didn't want to go Bam or even Evan Mobley. I would have been fine with Jaren Jackson there, but
yeah, Jaren Jackson is a guy who, if he plays the minutes and he keeps his hands to himself in 30 minutes, I don't even think he averaged 30 minutes a game last year. Maybe he did when after Ja went out, but he was dominating. He was a top 5 big man in the NBA, and he was doing very well. It's probably going to be a really good pick. And one thing to
and
consider,
Ja will be out.
yeah, Ja's going to be out for 20 games, and so where is Ja going? He's going right around pick 50. I think this is his ADP about 52, and so what I was talking about missing games, like it hurts you a lot to draft a guy like Kawhi if he's going to sit every other game. With Ja, because he's sitting for what's 20 games, a month and a half maybe. Um,
Yeah,
I think so. It's going to hurt your chances at the regular season prize, which is the majority of the prize pool here, which is mostly what we're shooting for. But the way I've been kind of making up for getting Ja, because I'm very interested in a player that can average 50 fantasy points at pick 50, especially at the guard position when I'm typically weaker at guard. I took Marcus Smart in the same draft that I took Ja. Just if Marcus Smart is the primary ball handler while Ja is out, hopefully he
that's what I
can.
was going to ask you if you like that. I kind of like that idea because then you're getting those points, and then when he comes back, he's still going to be getting minutes. So I feel
Yeah,
like that's a pretty good thing to do.
yeah. Even not considering that he's going to be starting and have the majority of the ball handling duties when Ja is out at the beginning of the season, this does not seem like a bad value for Marcus Smart. I mean, so one thing that we can do if we don't have rankings, we don't have solid rankings, think about what the average, if you played DFS last season, think about what the average price of these guys were throughout the season. And if you remember one guy, typically being more expensive than the other guy, then you can use that as a tiebreaker to draft your teams. Or like, Jaden Ivey. I mean, this guy started getting kind of expensive towards the end of last season, yet he's going all the way down here below Reeves, Buddy Hield, Derek White, Cam Johnson. Terry Rozier, he was an 8K guy at some point, and he's going in the pick 100s around Shaden Sharp, Gary Trent, Aaron Gordon. So there's definitely still values to be had right now. Kind of just want this draft to start though. So we got 6. We're halfway there. So we got there. Hopefully we'll be there in the next few minutes. Let's pull up a different draft, see if we can see something else. This is the most recent one I completed, and this one was a little bit weird. I'm trying to figure out what I want to do in terms of roster spots. So this one I did stick with 3 bigs. Bam, who I consider an elite big. Jakob Pertl, who is a really good big man. Guy I'm going to be targeting a lot in this contest. I think right now he's actually my most exposed player through 7 drafts. And then Mark Williams, just taking a shot on a guy who last season when he got minutes, he showed that he could produce. And so, like I said, as long as these 3 guys are not hurt all at the same time, I should be good at big. And with wing, I only went with 5 wings, but I stopped early. So Tatum, I'm going to be targeting Scotty Barnes like crazy. Fred VanVleet is gone, and Scotty Barnes is, him and Siakam, they are the man in Toronto. And we saw Scotty Barnes flash that huge upside last season. I think this is too late, especially that he's listed as a wing when he's probably should be a guard because he's going to just the way that they have their offense set up. And then Jabari Smith, I also think is a major value on Houston. Houston's going to be a team I'm targeting very heavily. Just bad team, high scoring. They're going to give up a lot of points. The games are going to be high scoring. Cam Johnson, best value, probably one of the best values at wing in the entire draft. Kyle Kuzma is also a great value. And then Trey Murphy, this also makes no sense to me. So you can see I reached like a lot. And right now, after the first couple, like ADP, I'm kind of just ignoring it overall, but especially after the first few rounds, just go take your guy because the ADPs, there's not enough drafts done to where the ADPs are efficient yet. And so if you think someone's a value, just grab them. You know, if you need a position, just grab them. And then we went pretty heavy at guard. So I got one elite guard. Consider this like my anchor running back, Devin Booker. This is Josh Jacobs. And then we got Jordan Poole, up and coming running back, Alexander Madison. You know, now he's on a new team or new situation. He has the opportunity to do literally whatever he wants. I think that 52 ADP for Jordan Poole is incorrect. And on a similar note, Kyle Kuzma might be the best value in these drafts right now. He's going around pick 50. And like I said, the fall off in wings, like even from Kuzma to these guys is a pretty decent tier break, right? And so again, just focus on wings early. This ended up being not a bad team. And then just some reasoning for guys like Keontae George. I don't expect him to contribute to my team that often, but so last season, the team I was targeting for tanking for the playoff weeks was OKC. And their best value player at the end of drafts was Jalen Williams, the rookie, the small forward, not the big man. And he ended up being a fantastic player in the best ball playoffs last year. He averaged like 40 fantasy points or something for guy past pick 100. And that's kind of what I'm doing with Keontae George here is that he showed a lot in summer league. He was really good. And in the event that Utah's bad and they sit a couple guys towards the end of the year, you know, Clarkson, THT, Sexton, whatever, Keontae George, maybe he has the opportunity to step into 30 minutes. And if he can just contribute during the playoff weeks, that's fine.
I think another thing is Sexton. I mean, you can't count on it, but he's had an injury history for sure.
That's the thing too. Like guys in front of Kawhi or behind guys that have injury histories, like that, like Kawhi too. Perfect example. Norman Powell goes pretty late in these drafts. When he starts, he's a fantastic player. So kind of like I've talked about it with NFL. Like you probably shouldn't be comfortable with your roster on week 1, but by week 7, your roster is going to look great. Maybe it's a similar thing here. You know, they expect Kawhi to play, but if he doesn't, Norman Powell becomes a really good guard value at ADP 165. So we need 2 more people. We have 8 viewers. Appreciate everybody being here. I should probably check the comments to see what everybody wants to talk about. Remember, if you guys want to talk about something, you have questions, please just throw it in the chat. You know, we're here for you.
One person.
If you guys like this, then you know we're going to keep doing this. First time we're trying a NBA best ball draft. I really wanted to get this out before, like I said, all those touts on Twitter start posting the information and this is what you should do, roster constructions, whatever. Honestly, right now, just scoop up the ADP value. Make sure you have 2 elite wings before round 5, probably an elite big, and honestly, you're probably going to do better than half the field. Oh, so we have a lot of questions. Appreciate you guys. Thanks. So Kev L said, "Hey Charles, if Luka is the best player of all time, should we be drafting him first overall?" Kev L looks like Kev L's in this draft at pick number 2, so he's going to have the opportunity to draft Luka if he wants. I got pick 4, which sucks because I think the drop off from these guys to Joel Embiid is extreme. But and then for Smitty, I think we're just hoping that we get Jason Tatum to fall to him at 6, right?
Yep.
Yeah, SGA, like he's awesome, but if he's going to sit games, it's going to hurt.
And it's hard there too because you could even go Durant and skip SGA just to get a wing.
Yep. And I feel like I did that in one of my contests, but with KD, kind of the same thing. We're worried about him sitting.
And taking him that early, that's a big hit.
It's just that, like, look at the wings. There's really, I mean, this is it. You got to get one of these guys. There's less than 12 elite wings in the NBA right now. I don't know if these guys are considered elite or not, but
I really like Siakam there.
Yeah, Siakam. So yeah, guys in new situations. Fred VanVleet's gone. Siakam's still on the same team, but his situation is completely different. Like at pick 20, this seems like I feel like he went around here last year, and he's a better value now. So Kevel, oh man, it's so gross. Like this guy got Giannis at 3. I want Giannis at 3. It's okay. I'm gonna take Joel Embiid or Jason Tatum.
Oh,
Probably just going to go with Jason Tatum here. I've been talking about how important wings are, and Joel Embiid tends to sit at the end of seasons because they run him into the ground. So hopefully this will work out for us. There's a few other bigs that we can target, but having Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic is just it's so powerful. Having 55 fantasy points pretty much guaranteed per
and this
game.
guy, they went Sabonis, so
They went
that's
Sabonis over
Embiid.
Embiid. So congrats
That
to Smitty on the present.
that makes it easy.
So this is something I don't mind reaching for Sabonis. I think I took him around here in a draft yesterday, but I would never take him over like Joel Embiid. I think that's a little bit too extreme.
Yeah. You talk about the steals and blocks. Embiid just has so much of a higher upside when it comes to that.
Yeah, I think here it's probably like worried about injury, worried about sitting games,
Yeah.
something like that. Like Demantis, he missed a couple games, but for the most part, he was good to go, ready to play. Huge part of their offense. So
That whole Kings team stayed pretty healthy.
yeah, that Kings team they stayed pretty healthy, and then even like Malik Monk, Kevin Werder, those guys are considerations towards the end of the draft. It's just we
Yep.
know they're going to play, but if they're not averaging over 30 fantasy points a game, then it's unlikely that they're ever going to see our starting lineup. So uh, again, we really just want the upside and guys capable of playing 30 minutes plus and producing at a high volume or producing at efficient high volume. And WW said, "Hey, so since there's little research in this contest, I figured there's 24 bigs, 34 wings, 43 guards in the top 100. Do you want most draft capital on bigs? I want most draft capital on wings, and then I definitely want so like usually." I would really love to have one of the top bigs. I'm not drafting Victor Wembanyama just yet, just because I'm a little bit concerned about his playing time. He's a project. He's the Spurs, the most hyped prospect since LeBron, and just given the way that his body is, they can't push him. He's still growing, and like preventing injury is a really important thing right now. And so I just don't think that he plays enough games and enough minutes to be worth this ADP. Because on a per minute base, he's probably going to smash the blocks, steals, rebounds, whatever. But just the fact that he's probably going to miss games, and maybe I'm making a wrong assumption, but I think it's a pretty good one to make, and I'm just going to be avoiding Wembanyama.
And he plays for the Spurs, so that even adds to it.
Right. I don't think a single Spur played over 30 minutes last year per game.
No.
So not even, or maybe Keldon
Yes.
Johnson would have been the only one, but he missed a ton of games too. And he was a disappointment. Could end up being a value since his ADP is kind of way down here.
Yep.
On the clock with pick 21, dude, I am not targeting Devin Booker, but I'm ending up with him in so many drafts. No one wants to take Devin Booker. I'm just taking him past ADP every time. I kind of wish he wasn't there so I could just click on Mikal Bridges and be done with it, but I don't
I
think I
like
can.
Bridges.
Yeah, Bridges is just the way he was killing at the end of the season. If he does that for most of the season, it's gonna be a really good pick. It seems crazy he's going at pick 21, but it's probably worth it.
Wembanyama too. I kind of think his ADP might just keep climbing up because of
Mhm.
the name recognition.
Yeah, I've seen him going as high as 13. I think I've seen him go in this range a lot. So it's just interesting because the difference between him and Chet. What's the difference between him and Chet? They're
Yeah.
both going to produce at a higher. Okay, so Chet's down at least to 57. This dude was around ADP pick 90 2 days ago, and so at least the field is smart enough to get there a little bit. But kind of the same thing with Chet. He just missed the whole year because of a Lisfranc injury in his foot. Like a foot injury is a big deal for a basketball player. Uh, he's probably not going to play every game in a row. And like I said, missing a week or two is not a big deal. But if you're missing one game a week, you're missing 30 fantasy points a week from these guys at least. So,
And you have
um,
Zion.
yeah, and then Zion too. I'm not touching. I drafted zero Zion last year. I'm drafting zero Zion this year. He could end up being a value if he's healthy and he plays, but it just based on what we've seen, it's really tough to get there.
It's just hard to see him playing over 30 minutes a game, really,
Yeah,
especially for a full season.
And so that's the thing. Can he average 40 fantasy points in 30 minutes a game? Probably, yeah. Is that
Yeah.
worth a 29th overall pick? Maybe. Just look at, I mean, it can, I think we just consider the guys around him, like Julius, Jalen Brunson, Jimmy Butler, Kawhi. Like, would you rather have these guys over Zion? Like, I'd probably rather have Paolo over Zion for this year. Paolo was really good. He might be going a little bit too late here.
Yeah. That whole Magic team, I think, is.
Yeah, the Magic, they're a perfect candidate for like late season tanking. So like that
Yeah.
we see this first time I've seen Victor Wembanyama fall past ADP.
Hmm.
I'm gonna go with
They're
Bam
doing it.
here. Gonna go with Bam. See, so one of the things I was thinking about when I took Bam in a draft yesterday, is there much of a difference between Bam and Vooch, who's going 20 picks later? Um, I don't think there's that much of a difference. Like I could go with Jamal Murray, but I really don't want to load up on guards early. I have in some drafts, obviously, if there's value, but I want to get my big. I want to get my two wings before round 5. So we locked up Bam. We'll probably grab one more big in this range, probably Jakob Poeltl at 76. And then we're just going to try and hammer wings now.
That's what I'm doing here. I think I'm between Randall and Butler, but I think I want to go Randall.
Yeah, I think I would have went Randall if I didn't go with Bam. It just this price is depressed. Like, why is Jalen Brunson
Yeah.
going ahead of Julius Randle? Julius Randle's position is more valuable. I understand Brunson did better at the end of last season, but in this tournament specifically, I think Julius Randle is more valuable. WW also said, like, if I have the number 2 pick, I'm passing on Giannis and drafting Embiid for the elite big. So my problem with that is just I've been hammering wings, and Giannis is the best wing, and it's not close. I actually saw an early ranking that had Giannis as the number 1 pick ahead of Jokic. I think that's incorrect. Jokic is a clear number 1 pick for me, but for me, Giannis is the clear number 2, then Luka, then Embiid. I think the top 4 is pretty efficient, and then after that, you can kind of just do whatever you want. I guess top 5 because I'm never passing on Jason Tatum at 5. So the top 5 picks, I think, are correct. If you disagree, then do what you want. That's your edge this early, is getting maybe 2 spots of ADP value on someone or just avoiding someone else. JC. Who is JC? JC doesn't get boards. I know we talked about Jordan Clarkson. That's the only JC I can
John
think of.
Collins, maybe.
Oh, John Collins doesn't get boards. Well,
He might.
he might.
Well, he is next to Kessler now.
Yeah, Kessler. Man, Kessler, another one of those guys. Like, so if you don't have an elite big, you have to hit on a late guy like Kessler. Kessler was going at pick like 140 last season, and he ended up smashing once he came in. He was basically Rudy Gobert after the Jazz traded him, and so I mean there are a few wings down here that we can still get to, but we really want a guy at the top. I guess like Vooch would probably be the worst starting big man that I would want. And if I fell past there, then I would definitely want 2 guys from this range to try to make up for it. With Nurse as his coach and no Harden, Embiid is a smash. I don't think what Bridges did is sustainable. The thing about what Bridges did is he had all the minutes and he had the green light to do literally whatever he wanted. He took 20 shots a game. Like, we did see him start to struggle to keep doing that. Maybe a couple weeks into that super run he had, but the Nets didn't get better. Maybe Ben Simmons comes back, maybe he doesn't, but I think Mikal Bridges, like, it's crazy to see him go this high, but I think it's correct. And Randall over Zion for Terrence Charles, I agree. Yeah, I'm probably drafting 0 Zion all year unless he falls like to pick 50 or something, which he's never going to. So
This part's tough because I really want Barnes, but I already have 2 wings.
that's one. Like, I'm fine. I'm fine doing it.
Like that.
As long as you have a few guards that you have in mind for later. I'm fine with taking 3 wings. Yeah, I would have taken our boy if you didn't. I think I've taken him in every draft I can at this pick, Scotty Barnes. It's just such a good pick.
I kind of like Bane too, but I'm not sure. I like him just because of Jaw being out, and then he's still going to get good usage even when Jaw's there.
Yeah, Bane, especially he got paid. I mean, again,
Yeah,
Bane, the guy who's going to play 35 minutes a game, probably close to it. So Kyle Kuzma, I'd probably rather have a couple of these guys over Kuz, but because like I was talking about, I think he's the last. Like there's a tier break after Kuzma. Maybe you can throw Middleton in there too, but really just want my second starting wing now.
I really like Kuzma. I mean, they have Kuzma and Poole, and I mean that's pretty much their team.
Yeah, I mean those guys are both. It's I'm so excited for like all the jokes people are going to make about them because there's going to be funny stuff that happens with that team during the season with those two players. It's going to be so fun,
Yeah, that's a combination.
right? Like and about team stacking, since we brought up, I would have the opportunity to draft Jordan Poole next, probably. Like if it's like Kuzma and Poole, I don't mind drafting two players from the same team. I'd probably keep it at two though. But one thing I've been considering is if drafting the backup big man, just in case your big man gets hurt, if that's viable. And I think it's better than it is in NBA because it just like I was talking about the way that we get NBA fantasy points and where those big fantasy spike weeks come from. It's so different from NFL that like, I don't even know who's the backup center in Miami. Would it be Jovic or maybe Orlando Robinson?
Probably Robinson, I would say.
So maybe like Carl Towns is a better example. If you draft Carl Towns and you want to add Nas Reed towards the end of drafts, that's probably great because we
I
saw
like
Nas
that.
Reed completely dominate. And it's like if Cat is healthy, you don't need another shot from a guy on another team because Cat is going to outproduce anyone that you're drafting around that range anyway. So, and look at all these guards. Not a wing in sight, huh? This is why I reached for Kuz, and I still have my pick of wings here. I'd like to see someone go into breaking down John Morant here because I just don't see how I pass on this. Even though he's missing 20 games, I'm going to grab a couple guards. Okay, so look at it this way: like John Morant, let's say we expect him to average 50 fantasy points when he comes back. Can I get a guard here that's going to average maybe 35 fantasy points for a month and a half until Ja comes back? And I think so. And so I'm not missing the 50 points from Jaw for the first 20 games. I'm missing the difference from him to whoever my starting guard is, which is, hopefully only like 15 points, 15 fantasy points.
See, and I don't really like the situation that Bill's going into. So
Nope.
here I'm
Nope.
going with Fred Van Vliet.
Yeah,
That's
that
pretty easy for me.
yeah, that's he would also have been my auto pick there if I didn't want to go for take the chance on Jaw. Uh
I was taking whichever one you didn't.
Yeah. Well, so with Fred Van Vliet, I think I mentioned this earlier. He led the league in minutes in Toronto. He's not going to lead the league in minutes on the Rockets. I think this price is still appropriate. It could end up being a value. The Rockets are just going to chuck. They're going to be really bad and probably score top five in the NBA. And so there's a lot of opportunity for Fred Van Vliet to go off. And similar to him, Jalen Green at 68, this seems incorrect. It seems a little
I
bit
like
too
that.
late.
Fred Van Vliet's also another one of those that can have those outlier stock games. He's pretty good when it comes to stocks.
Oh yeah, I mean, especially him. He'll do it 2, 3 games in a row and then disappear for
Yep.
a week, which is perfect for the way that the scoring format works. I really wish I could
Yeah.
remember. I think it's every 2 weeks, but it might be one week. But I'm pretty sure that a scoring period for this tournament is every 2 weeks, and so we're getting 5 to 8 games from these guys. Uh, Terrence Charles, do we think Van Vliet is in a stable situation? They just paid him like the most money that franchise has ever paid any player in the history of the NBA. So I would be shocked if he wasn't like the featured star. I mean, Jalen Green is the young stud, of course, and they have Jabari Smith, Alperen Sengun coming up, but Fred Van Vliet, he's going to be the primary ball handler for that team. And so I think he's probably a great pick at where he's going right now.
I think.
Hmm. Sorry, you broke up for a little bit.
Oh, I said I think all of Houston is too cheap in general.
Yeah, every single player, even our boy, and I don't know why he's my boy, but my boy Dylan Brooks is going at pick 140. This is 150. Like, this is wrong, dude. I know that we all made jokes about him, but come on. Like, I actually would take shots on quickly before I would on Brooks, but over all these guys, Dennis Schroeder maybe has potential to play a lot in Toronto. He's a good dart throw here, too. But this is insane, dude. we're expecting this guy to start. They just paid him the second most money that franchise has ever paid anyone. Like he's
Yeah,
going to play. He's going to play 30 minutes a game.
and he's gonna shoot.
Yeah, he's going to shoot the ball. We know Dylan Brooks is going to shoot, get a couple steals. So, what are you thinking about
This
here?
one's tough. I was
Yeah,
kind of thinking about going with Turner, but
I like it. Yeah, there's a lot of guys here I'm kind of indifferent to. I don't really
that's how
mind
I feel.
going either way.
I would almost feel better about even going with Jabari here, but I already have 3 wings, so I'm gonna go with Turner.
That's my consideration right now. Jabari or it's just so I could get a wing or I could get a guard to kind of make up for Jaw for the first 20 games, and then that guy will end up being my flex after Jaw comes back. But if I don't draft Chris Middleton or Jabari Smith right now, this seems like a huge fall off at wing.
Yeah,
Chris Middleton disappointed last year. This guy was going 20 picks ahead last year, so I'm going to take Chris Middleton. But yeah, like Smitty had an inkling towards Jabari Smith. I have a very strong lean on Jabari Smith. He's probably my one of my most. Let me just see if I can pull that up.
I think it's a lot of it is just the unknown of Houston. They got so many moving parts now, and people don't
Mhm.
know what to expect. So if we can get on there early, I think that's a pretty good value.
Like, and maybe I'm biased because I'm pretty sure Jabari Smith won me a NBA DFS contest last year, but this guy was going off. Like, if he gets the minutes and can stay on the court, he's gonna do great. So I've done 7 drafts. These are my exposures: Jakob Pertl, Julius Randle, Jabari Smith, Jordan Poole, DeAndre Hunter, Terry Rozier, and then Scotty Barnes. Like these are my leans, early leans. I have more early leans. Can't get them in every draft. I've only done 7. But I think all these guys are tremendous picks, especially DeAndre Hunter. With we talked about John Collins is in Utah now. Like DeAndre Hunter, if he plays the 35 minutes a game that he should, the way that that team is constructed right now with John Collins gone, he should do pretty well for where he's going. I'm not saying he's going to crack your starting lineup every week, but he's a really good pick. And then like this, like Russell Westbrook going this deep, I don't know. I'm gonna take him every time.
I mean, he's one of the few in this guards in this range that could give you 35 to 40 points.
Right? Like I'm avoiding Kawhi, and I did draft Paul George a couple times, but I'm not sure about it now. I might like I'm gonna get to Scotty Barnes over Paul George probably now. Not sure if I'd actually click Kyle Kuzma over Paul George. It's a possibility, but if I'm avoiding those guys because I think that they're going to sit a lot of games, then it's kind of like I'm getting double leverage by taking Russell Westbrook as well because he's the player who's going to primarily benefit if those guys sit.
Yep.
Like whatever you think about Russ in real life contributing to a team, like this is fantasy basketball. We don't care about none of that. We care about points, rebounds, assists, blocks, and steals. And Russell Westbrook does all of that at a high clip.
I don't know how to feel about Brandon Miller. I mean, that Charlotte team, they'll play their guys minutes and they shoot, they're fast paced. So I like the upside of him, but
Yeah, I think it kind of seems like we're paying a lot for that upside right now. Especially the guy that went right next to him,
yeah.
Miles Bridges, is we're expecting him to come back. He took a year off because he got in trouble. Beat well, I don't want to talk about what he did. You can Google it. But if he comes back, he was a top 10 wing last time he played basketball in the NBA. So this could end up being a tremendous pick. And I don't see why Brandon Miller wouldn't start next to him. This would hurt Terry Rozier, who I mentioned was one of my favorite value picks, but they're probably all good picks in this range. Taryn, bruh, who plays fantasy basketball? LOL. NFL is where it's at. Well, after 400 NFL drafts, I just feel the need to mix it up a little bit. We got a new sport, new season. I'm excited. NBA is my main sport. Like, it's weird because I actually enjoy the NFL. I enjoy the fantasy football sweat more than I enjoy the NBA sweat, but I'm just so much more tuned in to the NBA. Not to say I'm not tuned in the NFL, but like NBA, I know everyone's minutes, I know all the rotations, and so just like looking at this without having any outside tools to help me draft, I feel like it comes really easily.
So this WT14, he took 5 guards, 2 wings, and he has no big yet.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see how he rounds out this team if he
Yeah,
just like loads up on 4. I
he,
mean, I would take a big immediately.
that's what. Yeah, I think I would actually get probably 4 bigs if I was in that situation.
I would want four serviceable bigs, right? Like the
Mm,
fourth big. I mean,
mm,
I guess if you take a shot on someone like Nikola Jovic or something, then
yeah.
it's probably fine for this build. We just, you want to hit on that Walker Kessler. Terrence Charles said Kevin Porter Jr., Eason. I'd love Van Vliet on a good team. Too much competition and knuckleheads. So with Kevin Porter Jr., I'm hoping he gets traded. I don't see why they would keep him. I mean, he did pretty well last season, but they just paid Van Vliet. They just paid Dylan Brooks. There's just not that much playing time for him. They're more incentivized to develop Jalen Green. And so if KPJ gets traded to the right team, I mean, it's like 35, 40 fantasy points from a pick 100 guy. And then Terrence falling asleep here. Sorry, man. If NBA is not your jam, it's not your jam. But sorry, buddy.
This is a hard pick. I think I'm going with Marcus Smart.
I don't hate it. I would have grabbed him if you didn't.
It's a little early, but I like it.
I'm going to take the value on Jared Allen here.
I like that. I almost went with him in my last pick.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the ADPs are not efficient right now, but 20 picks past ADP today, like, I'll take it. It seems fine. And then I'm
Yeah.
really hoping my guy makes it back to me at pick 100, but he hasn't a single time that I've prayed for this, so I don't think he will.
Cam.
It's my boy Cam, yeah. And we have a Kevel's in the chat. Let's take a look at Kevel's team. You went Luca, Mikhail, Kat, Desmond Bain, Franz Wagner, Jalen Green, DeAndre Ayton, John Collins. Pretty good distribution of positions,
Yeah.
good players. It's a good draft.
I like it. I got to get some guards.
Yeah, Cam Johnson just went, so that's sad. Probably not taking another big until maybe like the Steven Adams, Daniel Gafford, something like that later.
Yep.
Chris Paul is another interesting one. If Steph or Clay misses a game, he has the opportunity to start. Could end up being a pretty good value for a couple of weeks anyway.
Yeah. Another one I see falling is Tyus Jones. I think is worth some shots.
Tyus Jones, yeah, that's a guy who I don't think I've been taking him that much, but maybe I drafted him only once. I probably only had the opportunity once, but yeah, new situation. If he ends up being really good in Washington, I mean, he was killing on Memphis, so
Yep.
I really want to grab another wing because the wings down here are not that good. But these, I don't know. I don't want to take one of these bigs. Probably between KPJ and Terry Rozier. KPJ and Terry. Also, if you're like looking at this stuff, this is so funny. Like they have the 2023 projections up here, Underdog does, and every single player is projected for less minutes than they were the previous year, which makes no sense. Like don't pay attention to these. If you're looking at this, the only thing you should be looking at is minutes from the last two seasons.
I was going to go ahead and go Tyus, but I don't think Shaden Sharp will make it back to me.
Yeah, Shaden Sharp's a guy that Smitty and I have a pretty strong lean on too. Like, if Dame gets traded, Shaden Sharp is going to shoot up to this range. Shaden Sharp and I don't really understand why Scoot is going so far ahead of Shaden Sharp. Like, I get Scoot is really good at basketball. He was the third overall pick this season, but like we saw Shaden Sharp average 40 when Damian Lillard was out. It seems pretty good.
Yep.
Jared Allen. Yeah, so NFL, man. We got the first NFL contest. I wonder if I feel like this one's going to fill up before, like, they're going to come out with another one. I know it's not filled that much, but, like, we're in prime NFL drafting season right now, and there's still, like, enough of these drafts firing every day.
I think that's why they were running all those promos. They were worried it wouldn't fill, but I don't think they'll have any issues.
Yeah, they should They should be okay. The other sites might be in trouble. I know
Yeah.
the overlays on the other sites are pretty tremendous. I hope that doesn't affect their NBA products with the prize pools and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see.
Is Christian Wood, is he even on the, is he a free agent now?
I feel like he's a free agent.
I think so.
There's another guy that you could take a shot on, right? If he signs on, it's just what team could he go to that he plays 30 minutes? Like he should have played for the Mavs, and maybe Jason Kidd just really hated him, but should have been a perfect situation for him.
Now they have Grant Williams.
And now
He's
they
like
have
the opposite.
right, literally the opposite. It's like Jason Kidd's favorite player is Grant Williams now.
Yeah.
Well, you might get your chance to get your guy on the way back.
Yeah. We'll see. This WT really don't need another guard. So
No, should grab a wing for sure. Because it's just like looking at this, like with these guards, Buddy Hield and Clay Thompson are hardly going to contribute points for the season. So I would like to go another position if I was in that spot. And you got your Tyus.
yep. That's kind of how it worked out last night. I was debating between Ingram and Kawhi, and I ended up getting both.
Yeah, don't you love it when that happened? Like, oh man, I should have taken this guy. Oh, got them both anyway. It's fine. And so I went Bojan. Detroit is a team with a lot of young players, but they did pay him last season. You got to have some kind of veteran in the locker room, and he showed some spike week potential, and just again, not that many wings after him. So
I think Gordon Hayward's in a weird range. I don't think I could do him though.
I'm looking at Gordon Hayward kind of like I'm looking at Adam Thielen. Like, yeah, he's probably going to give a pretty decent floor, but
Yeah.
that's probably it. I mean, maybe Gordon gets traded, but we haven't seen him play a full season in years, so it's unfortunate.
Yep.
Hunter, Trey Murphy, I think are pretty good values down here. Sadiq Bey, Smitty and I were talking about earlier too. Maybe he can step into that starting role and get 30 minutes on this team. Could end up being a value. Tari Eason, someone gets hurt, stepping into more minutes. Denny Avdia, like Beal's gone. He started. Actually, Denny Avdia could be a really good pick down here.
Yeah, I like that pick.
Cam Whitmore, like, I don't know, Summer League MVP going at 155.
I would feel pretty good with a lot of the guys down there.
Right? Like
At least
Obi Toppin.
shots on. Even Grant Williams, he's going to play 30 minutes a game.
Yeah, Grant Williams is going to
He
play
can
the
shoot.
most minutes after Luka and Kyrie.
Yep.
Yeah, there's some guys down here. Just you don't want to depend on these guys to contribute points. You know, these guys are more just if they happen to have a good week here or there, that's awesome. Did my guy get taken? I was going to take Avdia next.
Yep. He heard you.
Like so you see what I'm talking about with like the ADPs. People are just reaching, dude. The ADPs are not settled in. There's still so much value out there if you guys are getting in there drafting this week. I think I'm just going to take my boy Trey Murphy. Another double leverage thing like I was talking about with Kawhi and Russell Westbrook. I don't think Zion's going to play that much. Trey Murphy was killing when Zion didn't play. It's probably a really good value here. Oh, and we see Kev L took a shot on Ben Simmons. I like it. Could pay off if he play. I mean, all he has to do is play. Oh, that's why you took Denny. You hear me talk about Denny, or do you already have it up? Could be a tremendous pick from Washington.
Let's see. Now, I don't want to take a shot on Hayward. I think Hunter's probably my top guy right here.
Yeah, I would go for Hunter over Hayward pretty much every time.
Yeah, Just so much more upside.
Then some bigs like Jalen Duren showed a lot. If if Bagley is not in the rotation next season and Jalen Duren gets a lot of the minutes, like if Wiseman doesn't end up in there, then he's great. Like Steven Adams had a couple weeks where he averaged close to 40 fantasy points and then he missed half the season. Bobby Portis has that potential. Like a lot of guys in here. Mark Williams can step into 30 minutes if they trust him enough. He's a fantasy point per minute monster. Again, Nas Reed. If the guys end up out, then it's probably a great pick. Yep. Zach Collins, I think Wembanyama sits every other game. Zach Collins ends up playing like he's not going to contribute a ton of points, but he's a really good backup to have if you draft him in the last round.
I think Plumlee's kind of the same way because the Clippers will normally play their big.
Yeah, especially we saw him take Zubac's minutes a couple times depending on the situation. So
that's what kind of worries me about Zubac a little bit.
Yeah, just kind of just capped at 30 fantasy points no matter what happens.
They've never really felt comfortable running him out there.
No, and they did it a few times and it worked. He did really well.
Yep.
But
I think it was when George and Kawhi were out. He was out there. He was putting up 40 to 45 DFS points every time.
Oh, yeah. We were playing him in DFS every day during that stretch. And like him and Norman Powell were just going off.
As soon as they came back, he was back to his 27 to 30 minutes.
Like just grab 12 rebounds and,
Yep.
So, like in NFL, we really care about our last picks. Like BBM2, when Liam won a couple of years ago, he had Amon-Ra St. Brown and Rashad Penny as 2 late round picks that were the best players in the final rounds. That's never going to happen in the NBA. Like the best players in the final rounds are going to be from this, like a couple guys from here. And then, for example, last season, Jalen Brunson and Spencer Dinwiddie were the really good mid round picks who ended up being studs during the fantasy playoffs. So it's like your first 6 picks, 7 picks are just so important here because that's where the huge majority of your points are going to come from your first picks. These guys, most of them probably aren't going to contribute on the season unless your guys get hurt. It's just like I talked about, like the way with NBA, you have to get minutes. A guy who gets 20 minutes is never going to compete on a fantasy point basis with a guy who's playing 35. Just not happening.
I was really looking for Portis and he got taken.
Add your third big.
Yeah, I might. See, if you wait past here, it just gets kind of tough. I mean, I like Gafford. I'd be okay with Robert Williams, but
yeah, it's so funny because I draft like Al Horford and Robert Williams both fell to so hard when one of the first drafts I did, and I was so confused why I completely forgot that Porzingis signed there, and then we have Porzingis going before pick 50.
Yeah,
it's probably fine. I think I'd rather have Vooch.
Another pick I like is Anthony Black, but I don't know. I think I'm going to go with Mark Williams here.
Yeah, I don't mind it. Anthony Black, I don't know too much about, but again, if he's a guy who has a potential to step into 30 minutes towards the end of the season, seems awesome.
I think that's what you're looking for with him.
So I'm between 2 guys right now, Quickly or Gary Trent. Gary Trent, Fred VanVleet's not in town. We saw him do pretty well when he does start. He was coming off the bench for a lot of the season this year. And then Quickly, this guy was an absolute monster when Brunson was out. I don't know what they could do. I'm going to go with Quickly here. I think Quickly's ceiling is higher than Gary Trent's floor. Or no, Quickly, well, that's obvious. Quickly's ceiling is higher than Gary Trent's ceiling. And so it's probably more likely Gary Trent averages 30 fantasy points. But if Quickly manages to step into that 40-minute, like just dominant role that he had towards the end of last season, then he's going to be a smash pick in this range.
Just give him the minutes.
Yeah, just give him the minutes or trade him to, I don't even know who's tanking anymore. Every team seems like they have a couple of young guys. Orlando.
Yeah.
The thing too with these drafts, since like NFL drafts are 18 rounds and they go so quick at this point, most people know who they're taking, they know what they're doing. But in NBA, like every draft, everyone is taking their full 30 seconds on every
Yeah.
pick. Like we'd usually be done with our NFL draft by this time already, but we still have 4 more rounds to go here.
I really hope Black makes it to me, but I don't think he will.
I don't know if people really know who he is. I'm kind of surprised his
No, they
ADP is
probably
as high
don't.
as like
I am too.
like of all the people that could be that high, it's just kind of it's an odd one. I'm on the pick with 148. Might just go with Steven Adams here. I don't know if I'm going to do 4 bigs or not since I have 2 pretty good bigs already. I wanted Nas Reed.
I'm probably gonna stick with 3.
I might stick with 3 since I got Steven Adams. It's a little concerning how much time he missed last season, but he doesn't typically miss time, so he should be good for this season.
Yeah. I don't mind Herb Jones here, but I think I'm gonna go with Black. I've been talking about him, so
Yeah, I like
I
it.
just think late season. I mean, he's gonna get minutes,
Yeah,
especially if they're a losing team.
that's all we want from him. Saw Kev L take a Obi Toppin at 146. I love it. It's probably one of the better wing values this slate. Just a guy that has if he starts, if he gets 30 minutes, he's going to put up fantasy points. That was a player I had a big lean on last year, Obi Toppin, in like the last round of drafts, and I think he finally did go off at the end of the season, but it was after the NBA best ball playoffs even ended, so no one got any fantasy points for him when he had those like crazy games with Julius out.
They just never gave him the run last year.
No, how can you play him over Julius Randle? Not saying that Julius
Yeah,
Randle was like super dominant last season or anything, but Thibodeau's coaching rotations are like if you're one of
yeah,
Thibodeau's guys, you're gonna be run into the ground, and if you're not,
yeah.
you're just not gonna play.
I remember one game last year, quickly when he was starting, he literally didn't come off the court. He
Yeah,
played the whole game.
yeah. Was that the game he put up 70 fantasy points?
Yeah, I think he was probably 80% owned,
Yeah, I mean, it just
or
guys
he
like
should have been
quickly,
80% owned. But
like guys like quickly going this late. He has more potential than Malik Monk. He's got more potential than pretty much all of these guys. Trey
yeah,
Jones, I say
yeah.
because he's not going to play 30 minutes. Um, I don't know.
Trey Jones has a high floor, but the ceiling's just not there.
Yeah, it was really frustrating to play him in DFS because he's a good price and we expect a fantasy point per minute. But if he's only playing 29 minutes, I mean, it's not going to win us
Yeah,
a GPP at his price.
yeah,
This is a player I do not know about, and I know about everyone in the NBA. Bilal Koulibaly.
yeah. He seems like a pretty good player, but I mean, just from summer league, I don't really think he's going to be really relevant in DFS unless he's cheap or best ball. I just don't know if he has the ceiling.
I'm curious why he's going because I've seen him go in every draft I've done.
Yeah,
I mean, Washington's going to be bad. There's going to be playing time available, but
he'll
why?
play.
Okay. Okay. And
He's
Jerace
probably a good.
Walker. Hmm?
I like Jerace. I was going to say Bilal Coulibaly. I think he's worth a shot late, but it's not someone I'd be really excited about.
Well, it sounds like kind of similar to Anthony Black. I mean, if they
Yeah.
decide they want to start him and play him 35 minutes and see what happens in the last few weeks of the season, then ends up being a tremendous pick.
Yep.
And you took Gafford too, little team stack there.
Yeah.
If you take a team stack right now, you really want to luck into Washington having 8 games in the finals because, like I said, we're mostly going for the regular season prize right now. There's nothing we can do to prioritize for the playoffs. We have no information. But like you can do little mini team stacks. Like I know in NFL we're typically shooting for quarterback with a skill position, but there's no quarterback here, so you can just stack whatever. Like probably 2 different positions. Don't stack 2 bigs from the same team. That doesn't make sense. If it's like a backup, it's fine, but I should say not two people you're expecting to contribute points most weeks.
My next pick is pretty tough.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's all just who do we like the most, right?
Yep.
Well, kind of what I was saying. Who's the most expensive? Like Norman Powell was regularly 6K when Kawhi and PG were out.
Yeah.
Like Karras was a top value pick all season. Mike Conley's a starting point guard in the NBA. He was better on Minnesota than he was on, or maybe he was worse in Minnesota. I don't know. But either way, he's a starting point guard in the NBA. Going this late.
I kind of want to go Grant Williams just because I know he'll have those games, especially when Kyrie or Lucas sit. I mean, I don't know if I could do it though.
The thing is, I don't really want any of these guys over Grant Williams, right? Maybe Kelly Oubre, but we don't know where he's going to play yet. But
Yeah,
like you said, with Grant Williams, we can be pretty confident he's going to play 30 minutes a game.
I think I'm going there.
I like it. I think I need another wing. I'm just going to go with what I said, Kelly Oubre. I don't even know where he could
I
sign.
like
Though.
Oubre.
That like
No,
he has the most potential out of this group, I think, but I don't know a team he could go
I mean
to.
the Wizards seem like they could use pretty much anybody.
Oh my gosh, add Kelly Oubre to this team would make it even funnier. That would be awesome.
Oubre, Poole, Kuzma, even Gafford.
Yeah, Gaff, like these guys could all be good fantasy guys. Like we don't care how good at basketball they are. We just care that they just like, especially if they're bad on defense, it's more possessions for everybody.
I mean, minutes equals fantasy points, unless you're like Reggie Bullock. But
Unless you're Reggie Bullock, yeah. B-Don, Frank Ntilikina vibes. Frank Ntilikina, man.
when is Hardy going?
He's going last
Is he-
round. He was like
Okay.
190.
I like that pick.
Yeah, he's a guy I'd be interested in too. If Kyrie sits, like,
Yep.
it's kind of disappointing because the Mavericks kind of emphasized that Summer League was all about Jaden Hardy, and then he, disappointed.
Yep.
Andrew Nemhard's another one that could be interesting late here for Indiana.
Yeah.
Even Tim Hardaway. Like, there's interesting players. They're just not going to contribute the points we need to compete.
Bol.
Bol. Oh, I thought someone drafted him.
No.
No, drafted him. I was
Not
gonna
yet.
say, it's probably a waste of a pick.
Yep.
Cam Thomas, really like this pick too. Just guys at the end of drafts who, if they walk into minutes, they're going to produce.
Man, those just seem like the type of people that could win you the tournament, really.
Yeah, Kev L did a pretty good draft here. Oh man. So I have 2 picks left. I have a 5-6-3. I'm gonna take at least one more guard. The question is, do I need one more wing on this team, or do I just want to take a big just in case someone gets hurt? There's no wing that I'm like that even looks good, like Marvin Bagley, Malachi Branham.
Jalen Johnson, he's not going to start for Collins, is he?
Oh, there's no way, right? Even if he does start, though, like
I don't think so.
I mean, we saw him do well in 20 minutes. Is that going to translate if he gets 30? Maybe.
Yeah, that's tough.
This is the one thing I'm not sure about is 3 versus 4 bigs. That's just
I agree.
One thing.
Really, I don't mind a shot on Robert Williams, but how we were talking about Powell earlier, I really like the upside of that pick.
Yeah, maybe I should have gone there with Norman Powell instead, but it's okay.
Yeah.
Who's Memphis's backup point guard? I guess it just because Marcus Smart's going to start.
Yeah. I don't even know.
Derrick Rose, Josh Christopher, Jacob Gilyard.
Gilyard, he's solid, but
it's our summer league darling. D Rose. B Don said D Rose. Man, if D Rose is good enough to still contribute minutes in the NBA, that would be pretty fun. He was on New York, right? Tibbs just wouldn't give
Yeah,
him time. Fans wanted to see him play, even in blowouts. They wouldn't do it.
it's pretty sad.
Man, the end of NBA drafts are just excruciating, though.
Yeah.
Like,
It's like these guys, some of them don't even matter. Monty Morris, I didn't know he played for Detroit now.
right? That's a guy I might be interested in, but just how? There's too many young guards on Detroit who
Yeah, there is.
have potential, I guess. Jalen Suggs is interesting. He did he had some stretches where he did pretty well. THT did pretty well when he had the opportunity.
Yeah, I
Gabe
do like
Vincent,
Suggs.
like a lot of guys down here that can really give minutes. Like Quentin Grimes randomly just went off when he started and played 40 minutes. That might be one thing. Just the fact that Quentin Grimes has the potential to play 40 minutes might be enough to make him a good draft pick, regardless of how he does.
Yeah.
What position are you looking to fill out your draft with? You got a 6'6" going.
Yeah, I really kind of wanted to go wing, but I'm kind of just going to play it with the best available, I think.
I like that. Yeah, I like that.
What?
I think three bigs is good too for your team.
Yeah, I mean, I have good enough bigs. Here, I kind of like Suggs, but
It's probably my favorite guy, him or THC.
yeah, that's kind of where I was going. One of those two. I do like Jonathan Isaac down here too. He's a guy that could play 30 minutes down the road.
Man, can he play at all? He hasn't played in
Yeah,
like
that's true.
he hasn't played an NBA game in like 4 years.
No.
But if he's finally healthy, if all that rest was for now to make sure he's healthy, then we're good. And of course, Jalen Suggs and THT go. So now I have to think about who else I'm going to take. I don't mind Gabe
That's
Vincent.
why.
I don't mind Gabe Vincent. Quentin Grimes, Jaden Hardy.
So,
Agbaji could be a pretty decent late round pick too.
you think the Raptors run with Schroeder as their primary ball handler, or you think they go with Scotty?
I think it's got to be Scotty.
I think so too.
He did so well when he was handling the basketball last year. Like, not to say that Schroeder's like a poor ball handler, but they have more incentive to make sure Scotty's good than they do Schroeder's good.
Yep.
So Scotty, I'm hoping this guy ends up being one of the best picks in fantasy this year because I'm just gonna slam him.
I think that whole Raptors team is pretty
Mhm.
solid. Trent, I can't get too into Trent, but other than that,
Well, Trent for me, just where he's going, past pick 100, like 142.
yeah,
I mean, if he ends up starting, that's going to be just crazy value. So we're at the end of the draft. Everybody left. We only have 2 viewers left. But if you made it to the end, we really appreciate you staying here for the first stream of Smitty's best ball career and the first stream of the NBA season. As you guys can see, it's a little bit more excruciating than NFL. Just I'm hoping this gets better the closer we get to the season, but everyone just takes their full time on the picks, so this took forever. Kev L threw a fire in the chat. You had a pretty fire team, so appreciate you.
Yep.
B Don, is B Don in here? Maybe I don't see any names that are close to B Don, but appreciate you staying for the whole draft, man. It's pretty awesome. If you guys like this, if you guys just want to see NFL or just let us know what you want to see in the comments. Join the Discord. If you are just signing up for Underdog, you can use the code Occupy2 and they'll match your first deposit up to $100. So deposit 100. Now you have 100 in site credit in addition to your 100. So you could do 10 drafts in the double dribble for some NBA, and then you'll still have a few left over for Best Ball Mania. The Pomeranian 2 just dropped this morning, $3 entry, no rake. So it's a pretty great contest, especially if you're not that familiar with NFL. These are the best contests to practice in, like $3 entry. 50 max. First place is still $30,000. So like we're still playing for money just because it's $3. Like don't throw it away. These are great for practice and just getting in more teams. I'll probably end up firing a few later. But Brandon, any final words before we get out of here?
No, I hope you guys enjoyed it and let us know what you think.
Yeah, this was a fun one, and we'll probably be back again soon. So, everyone, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys for the next stream soon.